Well, I hope you enjoyed that Bible passage. Easy to understand, uplifting, soft, and fuzzy. You see, we want to start off our festive, warm, joyous holiday season with a stirring reminder that Jesus wants to confuse, scare, and threaten you, and of course, break into your house. At least some of your houses, those who don't get in line too quickly, because he's like Santa Claus who knows who you are. You see, the church hierarchy that decides which Bible verses get read on which Sundays wants to make sure on this first Sunday of Advent, first day of the Christian year, that we are reminded of the second coming's wrath, hell, and fury that God can't wait to rain upon us at any possible moment if we're not perfectly perfect all the time. Now, I suppose that's one possible interpretation. And given the nature of apocalyptic biblical literature, that certainly is one of many, though not mine and probably not yours. I tend to see this passage. It comes at the end of a much longer chapter in the book of Matthew on the prediction of the fall of that great temple in Jerusalem. It's a description of that Roman terror that was visited upon Israel back in the year 70 AD, when hordes of Roman soldiers, fed up with those rebellious Hebrews, marched on Jerusalem, and over the course of the following 4 years, they leveled it. Ask any of your Jewish friends. This is a critical moment when the temple, second temple, was destroyed, the temple that took sacrifices and had a whole sense of worship, to what we now have, which is more rabbinic-led. Well, Rome had given Jerusalem many chances to shape up. It did not. And at the destruction of the temple, more than 1 million Jews were killed. 100,000 were taken into slavery. You can still see the artifacts in Rome 2,000 years later. Some Messianic interpreters say that included God sending Jesus as a mediating reformer to get that religion back on track, as it had become an insular, corrupt, and self-centered institution, straying far from its intended embodiment, and we all know what that is. Jesus' coming was supposed to be the embodiment of the living and liberating movement of God to bring peace and salvation to the world. So why do we get this passage, folks? Here we are sitting in church 2,000 years later, in a place and time far removed from its origins. Why confuse us, an already fragile church, with difficult readings like this one? Especially now during the most wonderful time of the year. If you've been listening to WNIC, they will tell you that. They've been telling you that for the last 3 months. Well, it's because we're supposed to save that saccharine and sentimentality for next month. And today we can start out our new year with a sober and serious footing. And this passage, if it says anything, is to wake up. More specifically, to wake up to the consequences of our actions. Like the guy sitting high atop a tree with a saw, sawing off the branch that he's sitting on. Or building his latrine upriver from his watering hole. Or blowing massive holes in the atmosphere he relies on to keep him alive. Or pandering to conspiracy theories that can blow up democracy. Or passive reactions to horrendous incidents of gun violence that can prolong substantive solutions to the problem. Most all of these things, friends, start out with our good intentions and more than a little thought. But even then, we goof it up, which is why we're told to keep awake, to stay alert, to realize that even when we do our best, we can still get it wrong. We can still monkey it up. I quoted a study here not long ago about people who speak harshly or reply with perceived aggression in conversations. We all know people like that. And researchers found that upwards of 80% of people who are coming off as offensive to others, in my face, that's too loud, those words are too angry. Those people who talk like that, 80% of them don't realize it. How do you talk to somebody and not know you're yelling? We do it. We don't often have a good sense of how we're coming off to others. We need to wake up, to keep awake. We need to improve our self-awareness, realizing that much of the time, we're not fully aware of how we're being perceived. We don't make these mistakes on purpose. We don't harm with intention. Just don't know. Just need to wake up. This is why humility and curiosity are the best tools in our toolbox. So the theme of our sermon is to wake up to the consequences of our actions, which is easier when we embody humility and curiosity. Many times, our waking up starts with warning signs. Somebody says something to us, somebody behaves in such a way that makes us think twice. My friend Tommy, he's an excellent car salesman. Whenever somebody comes in dealership, he always makes sure to get their email address, make sure to get their phone number, so they don't contact him a day or so. He will call them, he will email them, and get a hold of them and say, hey, did you really want to buy a car from me? And he'll go through this several times, emailing, calling, and finally, you know what happens is he doesn't get an answer. And as Jeff Foxworthy used to say, there's your sign. You don't always have to get a no to know it's no. There are direct and there are indirect ways of communicating. So what then are the warning signs around you? Direct in your face or indirect, subtly hiding below the surface? Who's ghosting you? Who's raising a red flag? Who's holding up a stop sign? Who's trying to alert us to the consequences of our actions? Let me tell you about my friend Janine, her daughter went off to medical school. Her first semester, medical student comes back, and she's got, you can tell she's in first year, she's got the stethoscope, she's got the thermometer, she's got all the doctor toys, right, the doctor instruments. She comes home, tells the family, I'm gonna give you a checkup. And so she gives a checkup to everybody. And she said to her mom, you know, your blood pressure, I may be a first year medical student, but I can read this thing, and it is through the roof. You gotta go see a doctor. Just take a pill, one little pill, it'll bring it down, don't worry about it. Well, unfortunately, Janine did not have ears to hear, didn't go to the doctor, didn't ask about those blood pressure pills. 15 years later, she had a stroke. Thankfully, it was not too bad, but the doctor said it was due to a large part because of high blood pressure. While she missed that warning sign 15 years earlier, she got this one, and she's become more faithful to going to see the doctor. I wonder what it would be like for you to talk to your favorite medical professional and ask them, because they probably have a lot of stories like this. When they tell a patient, here's the warning sign, here's what's going to happen. And I say we because I do it too. We just don't have ears to hear, we don't have eyes to see. How is that manifesting in our lives today? Is this what Advent is asking us to do? Pay attention to the red flags. My friend Dave, I was talking this week, he's a friend I used to work with in Los Angeles, has one of these classic Mustangs. Anybody see the movie Bullitt? Remember that old Steve McQueen movie? Yeah, when in Bullitt, it features the same Mustang. And because they smashed so many cars they had like 10 of them, he bought one of them many, many years ago, saved up from the paper route. And he bought this car 30 years ago. And when he first got it, he noticed, you know, there's this little funny red light that goes on in the dash. But you know what? It goes off. No big deal. Right? Famous last words. Of course, next month, the engine stops because it's out of oil. He didn't sell it though. He put it on blocks and he eventually saved up enough money to put a new engine in it. But he's not forgotten a lesson. What dashboard lights are coming on for us? What signals are we ignoring? Maybe because tending to them would require too much time, too much energy, too much money. Or if you're like me, I don't have many mirrors in my house because I like to just think I'm good looking. I just like to think I look perfect. I don't have to fix the collar. I don't just so-and-so. I don't like looking in the mirror. Many of you may be like that. But looking in the mirror is what I think our gospel asks us to do. Where are the warning lights? What are the warning signs? Sometimes the difficult work of carrying that cross is self-examination, self-awareness. I appreciate right before Janine, thank you for fixing my robe. Before I walked up the aisle with my robe hiked all the way up. Self-awareness. We need other people's help many times. But what we need when other people tell us things is to listen. Humility and curiosity. Ever thought about the lessons our less than perfect behavior has taught us in the past? I won't ask for a show of hands, but do we have any ex-smokers? Do we have any bankruptcy survivors? Do we have any 12-steppers or divorced people? How many years did we spend saying and doing things that led up to that moment when we realized, Houston, we have a problem? How many subtle and not so subtle signs did we blow past? Thankfully, most of us are probably like my friend Dave with the car, learned a lot about preventative maintenance so we don't ignore the problem. It's one of the things I like about getting old is those signs when they come around, they're easier to recognize because I've seen them before, right? But I still need to take a bite of humble pie. Still need to take a dose of humility and curiosity. Chances are that most of us are doing something right now that's contributing to a future consequence we don't want. chances are most of us are doing something right now that's contributing to a future consequence that we don't want. And the message God may want us to get this morning is to wake up, take a look at your life, stop ignoring the signs. Is everything we are about pointing us in the right direction? How are our actions, our attitudes, our conversations putting us on a road to a place we may or may not want to go? Let's return to that example about gun violence, seeing as we've had another horrendous couple of days with shootings, Virginia, Colorado Springs, Philadelphia. In fact, in 2021, Americans were killed by guns at the highest rate in 30 years. Big increase following the pandemic, during which 18%, that was the rate in which gun sales went up. 18% during the pandemic. Now, a solution I don't have, but a curious observation I do have. What if those of us who are fed up with gun violence, and so perturbed, that we go out and we put a sign on our lawn, we put a bumper sticker on our bumpers, and we told our political representatives that we're no longer going to vote with you unless you make progress on this issue. That's what other advocates in other social issues have done with much success. Waking up means realizing not only that our indifference will continue to aid and abet the problem, but that our actions can lead to a solution, that we can change, we can do something about it. Folks, we're leading up to Christmas, and I don't know about you, but this is a season of hope. This is a season that says, hey, I've not lost sight of you. I am coming to your aid. I am here with you. And we can effectively address our negativity and our apathy, I think, by using curiosity and humility. Addressing this problem of gun violence. Boy, it seems like we haven't made much progress here. I wonder why. What have we been doing? What haven't we been doing? What might a different tact look like? What else can we try? It's having the humility to admit, oh, that hasn't worked. That was a bad idea. No good idea comes just in strings of good ideas. Getting good at failing is really, really important, because if you quit trying, you quit trying the solution. Friends, our actions today can lead to solutions tomorrow. Advent, our season of hope, hope that we can find solutions to intractable problems, none more than the sinfulness of humanity, which God addresses so profoundly in Christmas and, of course, in Easter. Have you come here today not feeling hopeful? Have you come here today feeling apathetic, beaten up by the world, and convinced? I talked to somebody this week who says, man, I'm not having kids. This world's too crazy. I do not want to have a kid. And getting very serious about it. I think if Jesus offers anything to us, it's a sense of hope. Have you come here today thinking that a problem you're facing can never be solved, can never be answered, can never be lived with? Do you think you're bound to replicate the same behavior, to be mired in the same ditch, to be bound by the same cords that have you in a rut for the rest of your life? Is that what God meant your life to be? Well, that's what salvation is, friends. And that starts with hope. Hope that things can get better. There is another way. I think we're asked to pay attention to the warning signs that are trying to get us back on track, stepping back, becoming more curious, becoming more humble. Finally, I want to leave you with a poem by a poet named Portia Nelson. It says something very profound about this issue of self-discovery, self-correction, and hope. It's called, There's a Hole in the Sidewalk. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever for me to get out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. Fall in again. Can't believe I'm in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It isn't a habit, but it's turning into one. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. Amen.